Okay, let's wrap up this chapter 10 by looking at some concrete examples. Some that you're probably familiar with, some you may not be as familiar with already. We're going to look at the moai, the big heads from Easter Island. We're going to look at Stonehenge. We'll look at Chaco Canyon and Cahokia here in North America. And then we'll also look at Great Zimbabwe in Africa. And these all represent some hints at monumentality, social complexity that sort of defy some of Gordon Child's 10 criteria, where he saw these things, like especially monuments and big monumental architecture, as being indicative of state formation. And it's not quite so simple as that. It's that, how do you become a state? Well, you might need to sort of create it out of will. You might need to invent the concept of a state. You might need to have people pay attention to some of the symbols that you're creating. And very importantly, you may very well need to have some kind of social structure that allows for that. So that's what we're going to look at. Let's look at the heads of Easter Island. It's surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. It's an extremely remote island, and were never really any large cities or populations of people on this. And there was no regular contact from anywhere outside of this archipelago, this Easter Island location. It's not really an archipelago, until 1722. And so why build these moai, these big heads? And there's been a lot of study and competing theories as to why this took place. And one of them is that leaders were starting to emerge, and they were competing with one another. Because it was built during relative prosperity. Life seemed to be pretty good on Easter Island. But who is in charge of this prosperity? Well, people vying for authority in this community. Maybe there was an expanding population. And also there was an ideology. There was a religion that was being founded and formed, and so a sense of identity on this island that actually was the moai are all facing towards their quarries, except with very rare exceptions. They were quarried at a quarry rock, sort of considered the navel, the heart of the island, and transported around to the edges to look back at that center point of the island. And to get them there, they probably had to destroy some of their landscape, rolling logs across some of their roads that they had constructed, and it might have actually been a death knell for their culture, in fact. Violence increased, their prosperity declined, and the construction of these moai eventually dropped off as well. So why did they build these things? Well, it seems as though political complexity was starting to emerge in spite of the fact that there was no state, there was no hierarchy, but you still have people competing for their places in society. There seems to be no elaborate planned construction and no obvious political or social elites that we have from the archaeological evidence. This seems to have been a chiefdom or some kind of a ranked society with no centralized state authority. I'm going to stop right there for a moment, and I'll come back and we'll talk about Stonehenge in the next video.